Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Monday special webinar. My name is Carl Jungervan. I'm the FIBA head of refereeing, and we have put this special webinar together today to explain you the rule changes for 2022, which will be valid 1st of October 22. We have the privilege to have Mike Thompson, who is part of the FIBA Rule Advisory Group. He will explain you the changes with the practical examples as well. So we will have some videos with the slide material as well. And also for information to everybody, we are creating a support material to national federations, which we will publish very soon. They will be in English, French, and Spanish, including the videos and the slides that people can use it to spread the message around the basketball community. So with these words, I really wish you again, really welcome to our session, and the recording you will find later on in the app. And it's my pleasure to welcome Mike Thompson. Mike, the floor is yours.
Welcome everyone to our Monday special for September of 2022. As Carl has indicated, FIBA has introduced a number of relatively minor rule changes. All will be in effect as of October 1st, 2022. We have, for the purpose of this presentation, broken those changes into minor and major changes. The overall impact on the game will be minor. It will be relatively small, except in those games where the IRS, the instant replay system, is used. In this presentation, we will not cover all of the minor rule changes in detail. We're merely going to point them out for you so you can review them at your leisure. You will also have a recording of this webinar available that will allow you to go back and look at certain slides. As well, Carl has indicated the national federations will have material to assist in the teaching. Let's have a look and start our presentation at some of these changes. On this slide, we're presenting for you an overview of the changes. On the right are our minor changes. We will walk through these. It's important to recognize that the majority of these minor changes are really just about improved wording. And that's why you see the letters IW in brackets after a particular article. There are some things that will have an effect on the game, often the very beginning of the game, and some changes for our scorers and timers, but all very simple. On the left are the major changes, which will be the focus of our presentation today. Let's move forward and start to look at a few of the minor changes. We'll begin with Article 4. This is the key of the minor changes in that within Article 4, teams in uniforms, we've introduced language that replaces terminology around compression sleeves with the terminology compression garments. What this means is that a player may wear a shirt or leggings under their uniform as long as it is compression. Compression means tight fitting, and this is very important. It's a tight fitting undergarment that will be allowed. An extra small point guard should not be wearing a double XL, an extra large shirt, because that would not be a compression garment. So it's a tight fitting garment. The key, of course, is that all of the team's accessories, whether this is compression shirts, shorts, leggings, headgear, headbands, wristbands, and tapings, must be of the same solid color. Everyone on the team must have the same solid color for their undergarments. There are minor changes around the size of the numbers on the uniform, both on the front and the back. As well, the space between the uniform numbers and the advertising is reduced marginally from 5 centimeters to 4 centimeters. In Article 15, we introduced the term shooter. and shooter merely means a player in the act of shooting. This is done for the ease of language and language in Aubrey, the official basketball rules interpretations, which will be available shortly. And an extremely minor change, in Article 42, we've added two words, have been, as indicated by the yellow highlighting on the slide. This is because Article 42, dealing with special situations, often the additional infractions are not actually committed in the stop clock period, but were actually committed during the live ball period that precedes the stop clock period. A very minor change. Let's step forward. A small but important change occurs in Article 12, and this is dealing with the alternating possession arrow, and in particular, which team shall be entitled to the first alternating possession arrow. We have eliminated the words on the playing court. On the playing court meant that if we had something unusual, so off of the initial jump ball, the ball was tapped directly out of bounds, we had to wait until after the throw-in to determine which team had possession of the ball on the playing court to determine the setting of the alternating possession arrow. We've eliminated those words. This simplifies the rule, and now it is simply the first team that does not gain control of the first live ball after the jump ball shall be entitled to the first alternating throw-in. So let's take our same situation. The ball is tapped directly out of bounds. Once the ball is placed at the disposal of the thrower in, that ball is alive, that team is in control of the ball, and the opponent shall be entitled to the first alternating possession throw-in. A very simple change, a minor change, but helps clarify and eliminate some complicated situations. And in Articles 48 and 49, dealing with the scorer and the timer, we've made some small modifications in the duties of the scorer and the timer, continuing work that was begun in 2020 to more appropriately assign duties for what really happens in the game. So the timer is now responsible to indicate when a player has committed 5 personal fouls and to notify the referee when a timeout request has occurred. As a final comment on this slide, in addition, we have introduced the head coach's challenge, which is on the score sheet, the responsibility of the scorer, and we'll spend more time talking about the head coach's challenge later on in the webinar. Here's an important change. Article 9. At the start, end of a quarter, overtime, or the game, we have placed within the rulebook a change as to where the home team shall warm up, or where each team will warm up for the game. The key is each team will warm up for the game in front of their team bench, and of course, play the first half in that direction. This is consistent with what many leagues, competitions, and organizations did during our very difficult COVID-19 pandemic period around the world. But we've codified this in the rulebook. This is the standard. We do know that by mutual agreement, the teams can still exchange team benches and or warm-up zones. But the protocol is that the home team bench is to the left of the scorer's table when facing the court, and for the first half, they will warm up in front of their bench. The primary reason for this change relates to timeouts in the last 2 minutes of the game. Under the old rule, under the old protocol, we often had the scorer, the timer, shot clock operator facing the opposite direction when a basket was scored, and the team that was scored upon, that head coach would call a timeout, and we were often slow to recognize the request, or we had situations where the request was actually coming late, but we weren't able to identify it because the scorer's table was facing the opposite direction. This way, we now have the scorer's table facing the direction of the coach that's being scored against, and we will clean up challenges we had with that last 2-minute timeout. And finally, on this slide, we can see some minor modifications made to the score sheet to better clarify the timeouts are in half 1, half 2, or overtime, and the team fouls by quarter. Moving forward and start to walk through our major changes. Article 8, playing time, tied score, and overtime has been clarified. Once again, improved wording, and we're dealing now with a foul that is called at the near the end of a quarter. When a foul is called near the end of a quarter, the referee shall determine if the foul occurred before time expired. If the foul occurred before time expired, the referee shall determine the remaining playing time and reset the game clock accordingly. The game clock must show at minimum 1/10 of a second to administer the foul and any penalties associated with it. So if we have a foul in the act of shooting near the end of playing time, and we determine that the foul occurred before playing time expired, we will reset time on the clock should the horn have gone. A minimum of 1/10 of a second must appear before we administer the free throws. This means we will never have a situation on a personal foul where players are not allowed to line up for that free throw. On all personal fouls, when we administer, we will have time on the clock and players will be able to line up for those free throws. One of the impacts of this is if we have time left on the clock, all fouls will be administered. But if we determine that that personal foul occurred after the expiry of playing time, the personal foul is disregarded. We do not administer that personal foul. However, if we have an unsportsmanlike foul, a technical foul, or disqualifying foul, that foul will be administered, but it will be administered as an interval of play foul with the penalty applied prior to the start of the next quarter. And if we're at the end of the fourth quarter or the overtime, and the foul occurs after the end of playing time, any foul is disregarded, not penalized, not administered. However, if it is a serious matter, an unsportsmanlike foul or a disqualifying foul, something involving violence, it may be that the referee is required to file a game report to the disciplinary body or the organization responsible for the competition. But fouls that occur after the end of the fourth quarter and there's not an overtime to be played will not be penalized or administered. Moving forward, we have put together a diagram, a flow chart that describes this very quickly. So when a foul is called near the end of a quarter, the first thing we must do, the referees determine if the foul was in time or not before time expired. Looking at the left side of the slide, we can see that we will reset the clock to the correct time and all foul penalties will be administered. On the right-hand side of the slide, if the referees determine the foul was not in time, so it was after time expired, if the game has ended, so the end of the fourth quarter of the overtime, the foul is not administered, but we may do the report. If it's the end of the first quarter, the second quarter, or the third quarter, or if indeed there will be an overtime played and the game will continue, the personal foul is disregarded if it occurs after the end of playing time, but we administer unsportsmanlike fouls, technical fouls, and disqualifying fouls as an interval of play foul. A very simple flow chart to help explain the rules. As we look at our next major change, we're really talking about the combination of two articles here, Article 34 and Article 37. The first and most important thing to recognize is that unsportsmanlike foul criteria C5, our throw-in situation in the last 2 minutes, has been deleted. It is no longer an automatic unsportsmanlike foul should the defense commit a foul in the last 2 minutes when the ball is still in the hands of the thrower-in or prior to its release. So we've eliminated the C5 criteria from Article 37. In its place, we've introduced what we call a throw-in foul. This occurs again in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or the overtime. It is a foul by the defensive player. However, it is a personal foul, and it's a personal foul that occurs before the ball is released on the throw-in. And important to understand that all other unsportsmanlike foul criteria may still remain valid. So in that last 2 minutes, if the ball is in the hands of the thrower in, and we have a situation that meets other existing unsportsmanlike foul criteria, like an excessive or hard contact, a C2, we can still have an unsportsmanlike foul, but it is not an automatic unsportsmanlike foul. It is still a personal foul. As we look at the next slide, we'll walk through this. So when we have that throw-in foul, so a foul in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter or the overtime, the penalty will be 1 free throw for the player who was fouled, and the game will be resumed by a throw-in at the nearest place to where the foul was committed. We've eliminated the automatic unsportsmanlike foul, replaced it with a throw-in foul with a penalty of 1 free throw for the player who was fouled, and the game resumed by a throw-in at the place nearest to where the foul was committed. This applies regardless of whether the team is in the penalty situation or not. The administered penalty is 1 free throw and possession of the ball for that same team. This has impacts on the shot clock. If the foul occurs in the backcourt, the shot clock will be reset to 24 seconds. If the foul occurs in the front court, we will continue with the remaining time, but never less than 14 seconds. So if we have a front court throw-in and the shot clock is at 11 seconds and the defense commits a foul prior to the release of the throw-in, the penalty shall be 1 free throw. The game will be resumed by a throw-in for the offensive team at the nearest place to where the foul was committed, and the shot clock will be reset to 14 seconds. At this point, let's move to our first set of videos. We will look at 2 videos that will show us an example of a throw-in foul, our 1 free throw penalty, and an example of a video where we still have the potential for an unsportsmanlike foul, a C1, not a legitimate attempt to play the ball, or a C2, an excessive or hard contact in that last 2-minute situation. Our videos will repeat the slides that explain the rule, and then watch the video. So here's an example of our throw-in foul. But this was indeed a personal foul, resulting in 1 free throw for the player who was fouled, and possession for the offensive team. Throw in at the nearest place to where the foul occurred. So here's an example where other unsportsmanlike foul criteria may still remain valid in this last 2-minute throw-in situation. You can see quite clearly that that foul continued to meet other unsportsmanlike foul criteria. So this foul will continue to be penalized with 2 free throws and possession, notwithstanding the new rule. And a throw in at the throwing line rather than the nearest place to where the foul was committed. It's important to recognize that this change was part of the cooperation between the referee department, coaches, and players around the world, where many organizers of basketball, coaches, and players felt that the C5 penalty was too harsh and asked us to have a look at it and adjust the situation so the penalty was not as harsh. So this rule was put in place through cooperation between the various parties. In Article 37, we had made a change, additional improved wording to the UF C4 foul, what we refer to as our clear path foul. This is another evolution of the game. As the game has changed over the years, we needed to take a look at this wording and make sure we are identifying all the situations where a C4 foul occurs. We still have our primary criteria, being that the foul must be from behind or lateral. The foul must be on a player progressing towards the opponent's basket without any other opponent players between the progressing player and the basket. But we identify that there are 3 potential situations. The progressing player may be in control of the ball. The progressing player may be attempting to gain control of the ball, gain control of a ball that may be loose and rolling on the floor, or the progressing player may be attempting to catch a pass that is made to him or her from behind. And the key here is for this third criteria to apply, the ball must have been released on the pass. So again, we maintain the basic criteria of our C4 automatic unsportsmanlike foul, foul from behind or laterally, and the player must be a progressing player going towards the opponent's basket without any other opponent players. But we have 3 situations. The progressing player is either in control of the ball, attempting to gain control of the ball, or catching a pass, attempting to catch a pass that is made to him, and that pass may be significantly behind the player, the key being but the pass has been released when the illegal contact occurs. Let's have a look at 3 videos that will show us in sequence each of these scenarios. Our progressing player controlling the ball, attempting to gain control, or waiting to catch a pass.
Inbounds it to Paldo. Being guarded by Atencia. Screen comes up for the Paldo, dribbles it off his own leg. Stolen away by Angola. That's going to be an unsportsmanlike foul. What a great play. Let's have a look at the replay. Yeah, mistake from Fittipaldo.
Excellent video showing our second scenario of the player attempting to gain control of the ball. And finally, our third video where the player is waiting to catch a pass that has been made to him from behind. Pass is released, There's the contact while attempting to catch the pass. Progressing player, no other defensive player between the player and the basket. Automatic UF C4. Noting, of course, that the criteria that these situations apply until the player is in the act of shooting continues to remain. Excellent videos prepared by the FIBA staff. At this point, we will move forward and focus mainly on changes to the instant replay system, Appendix F, and the introduction of the head coach's challenge. As the game has evolved, we identified that there were two main situations where an IRS review could be used, but the situations the game clock was not necessarily stopped with a whistle. These are the last 2 minutes on a shot clock violation or a potential shot clock violation, so we have a successful shot. So we could have a situation where a shooter either releases or is close to releasing the ball when the shot clock horn goes. If the shot goes in and we don't stop the game continues with no whistle, or at any time in the game, we know we can review a shot to determine whether it was a 2 or a 3-point basket. And once again, the game does not automatically stop after those situations. As the slide indicates, this is also true if an act of violence occurred, but we're going to focus on the other situations. We've amended the rule and added language to say that the referees are authorized to stop the game immediately after the reviewable situation occurs. And this is the best option. And critically, for the shot clock violation in the last 2 minutes, we want the referees to stop the game immediately if there's a need for a review. But we recognize that this may not always occur. And on our 2 or 3-point basket early in the game, it may not be until the next dead ball that the referees identify the need for the review. So the instructions remain: you're authorized to stop the game immediately after the reviewable situation occurs, and we would prefer this to occur. However, if the game continues, the referees must identify the need for the review the first time they have stopped the game for any reason. All timeouts and substitutions are held until after the final decision is communicated. However, if the ball is made live again after the first time the referees have stopped the game for any reason, the time period in which we may go back and review, use the IRS system on the last 2 minutes shot clock violation or a 2 or 3-point basket has expired. We've gone past the reviewable time. Let's slide forward to the next slide. So let's review this again. The timing of the IRS review is clarified. If a timeout has begun or a substitution has occurred when the referees identify the need for the IRS review, that timeout or substitutions are canceled until after the final decision is communicated. Once the final decision is communicated, either team may have a timeout or either team may have a substitution. The head coach may withdraw a timeout request when the final decision is communicated, or as noted, either head coach may request a timeout or either team may request a substitution. It's important to understand that timeouts and substitutions never occur on an IRS review until after the final decision is communicated. Once again, we built a flow chart to understand the new language that we've added, clarifying the limits on how long a shot clock review may occur. So we're dealing with a potential shot clock violation in the last 2 minutes, and we have a successful shot and the shot clock horn sounds. You should, as the referees, if there is a need to review that play, stop the game immediately. Looking on the left-hand side of the slide, we have our option A, and we refer to this as the best option. stop the game immediately, have the review before the ball is live for the throw in after the basket. If there's no violation, shot clock signal is disregarded, the goal counts, and we resume with the Team B throw in on the end line, 24 seconds. If we determined that there was a violation, the horn went before the ball was released, the goal shall not count, and we'll have a defensive throw in from the place nearest to where the shot clock violation occurred. However, if the game does continue, and during that continuation, the referees determine that they need to review that play, the referees are authorized to stop the game at any time without placing either team at a disadvantage. Or when the game is stopped with a whistle, perhaps the ball goes out of bounds, or there's a foul called at the other end. At that point, if the referees determine there's a need for a review, option B, they can go to the IRS. Same protocol occurs. If there was no violation, the goal counts, shot clock signal is disregarded, and we have a throw-in for the team that had control of the ball or was entitled to the ball when the referee stopped the game from the place nearest to where the ball was. Now, of course, if we've called a foul at the other end, we have our IRS review. We may come back and continue the game with free throws, but we continue from the point it was interrupted. Our option C on the left-hand side. So we do not stop the game after the basket is scored. We come down and start play. Our next stoppage is an out of bounds. As soon as the ball is live, placed by the referee at the disposal of the thrower in, the time limit for the use of the IRS has expired and the original decision shall stand. The same would happen if we stop the game because of a foul and we're administering free throws. As soon as the ball is at the disposal of the free throw shooter, the ball is live and the time limit has expired. Let's have a look at some videos that describe these three scenarios for us. As we've noted, we repeat our slides at the beginning of the videos, and it's important to understand that we encourage you to stop the game immediately, but if it does not occur, we have an ability to use the IRS until the ball is live again after the first stop. You can see in this situation, the referees have correctly stopped the game immediately and have decided to use the IRS to determine if the shot clock horn went prior to the release of the ball or not.
And back, and then frame by frame, please. Okay. All right. Good. Yep. No basket. Rolling on the floor is confirmed. No basket. No basket.
An excellent review by our crew, very well handled. We have a basket near the end of the shot clock expiry. The referees did not stop the game. The game continues. We've now stopped it because of a foul. The referees still have the ability to go to the IRS and review that play at that moment. And in this case, once that ball became live for the thrower-inner, we'd gone past our time for the review. Let's move forward with the next change we've made within Appendix F. This is a change that when you initially look at it, may feel fairly complicated. As we've said, you will have access to this video through a recording. That recording will include the slides, and you'll have a chance to go back and look at them carefully. Once we talk about it, I think you'll understand the rule better. This is, again, a rule change that was made in cooperation with suggestions from the coaches fraternity and those in charge of the game. We are now talking about the situation where we have called in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter overtime a goaltending or a basket interference violation. We know that previously, when we went and looked at this in the IRS, if we determined that the call was incorrect, often the way the game would have been resumed would have been through a jump ball, an alternating possession throw-in. And because we were in the last 2 minutes, it was felt that this was akin to a lottery deciding who might get possession of the ball for the last time in a game. And we were asked to have a look at the rule and see if we could come up with a more equitable solution. So, last 2 minutes, a goaltending or basket interference has been called. The referees determined that they're uncertain if the call was correct, so they decide to go to the IRS. If they go to the IRS and they determine that there was no violation, we have three possibilities. If a valid basket was scored, in any case, the goal shall count, and Team B will have a throw-in from the end line. The common option is that immediately after the violation is called, so let's say we have a shot in the air, a goaltending violation is called, the referee at that time, believing that the ball was still on its upward flight when the ball was touched, has called a violation. If they determine on the IRS that there was no violation and a player from either team has gained an immediate and clear control of the ball, including an out of bounds, and I will explain that, but a player gains an immediate and clear control of the ball, then we will resume the game with a throw-in from the place nearest to where the ball was stopped, or where the game was stopped, with a throw-in for the team of the player that gained an immediate and clear control. Within the Aubrey, the official basketball rules interpretation, we explain very clearly what an immediate and clear control is, and we note this is the first action after the goaltending or basket interference call is made, and it is immediate and clear control of the ball. If that occurs, that team shall be awarded a throw-in. And of course, there will be shot clock implications. If it is the offensive team that gets the throw-in and the ball has not struck the rim, the shot clock will continue from where it is. If it's the defensive team, in all likelihood, it's a backcourt throw-in, and the shot clock will be set to 24. There is a small possibility of it being a front court throw-in, but highly unlikely. And our third option, so neither team has gained an immediate or clear control of the ball. The ball remains loose. Neither team gained that immediate clear control. We have a jump ball situation. We return to the alternating possession arrow, but we have reduced the number of times that that occurs. I said on the immediate and clear control of the ball, this also includes an out of bounds. So let's take our same scenario. We have a jump shot. The ball is in the air. A player goes up and blocks the shot and blocks it immediately straight out of bounds. If the review determines that the call was incorrect and there was no violation, if that ball has been blocked straight out of bounds, then the ball would be returned to the offensive team for a throw-in at the place where it went out of bounds with the remaining time on the shot clock. Let's have a look at a series of 3 videos that show each of those scenarios. So again, repeating our slides, our three options. So here we have clear control by the defensive player. On these videos, please ignore the time in the game and look at these videos and understand they're to demonstrate these are all last 2-minute situations where a goaltending or basket interference is called. Clear and immediate control by the defense. So if we look at this and there was no violation, throw in for the defensive team. Once again, clear and immediate control for the defensive team. In this video, we saw that a violation was called. We look at the IRS. There was no violation. The offensive team had control of that ball.
He's going to take on the big man and turn it over.
Number 5, nice lead pass.
Look at that, right off.
Once again, a video that shows the offensive team having clear and immediate control. If we determined there was no violation, the offensive team would have a throw-in nearest place. In that case, would have been the baseline with the remaining time on the shot clock. First action, clear and immediate control by the offensive team. Example of the ball being blocked straight out of bounds. We consider that clear and immediate control by the offensive team, a throw in for the offensive team, time remaining on the shot clock. Ball's out of bounds. So some great videos to show the examples of clear and immediate control. And here we'll look at some examples of neither team gaining an immediate and clear control. We can see both teams had an opportunity to control it. Neither team did. So in this case, we would have a jump ball situation, an alternating possession throw-in. Violation called. If we determine that the call was incorrect, neither team has gained an immediate and clear control of the ball. Jump ball situation. Let's move forward. A very exciting change that has been made to the instant replay system is the introduction of a head coach's challenge. So in all games where the instant replay system is used, we are creating a situation where the coach may request a head coach's challenge. That is, they may ask the referees to verify their decision by using the IRS to review a particular game situation. The rule is heavily based on protocols and procedures, and let's take a moment to walk through those. First, the rule. Only one head coach's challenge is granted per team, per game, regardless of whether the challenge is successful or not. So there is no requirement for a team to have a timeout. There's no reward other than the change call for a successful challenge. You do not get another one. You get one per game. And there is effectively no penalty if the challenge is unsuccessful. One per team per game. It is only situations that are already covered in Article F.3, those situations that may be reviewed under the IRS are the only situations that may be challenged. However, without time restrictions. An example of that would be, we spent quite a bit of time in this webinar earlier looking at a potential shot clock violation in the last 2 minutes. We may have a potential shot clock violation that occurs 5 minutes into the game. If the head coach wishes, they may challenge the decision of the referees and have that shot clock violation or potential shot clock violation reviewed at that time under the head coach's challenge. To give you a crazy example, we know in the last 2 minutes of the game, an out of bounds decision may be reviewed under the IRS. We could have an out of bounds 1 minute into the game. If the head coach wishes, they may challenge that decision and have it reviewed under the IRS. So they may request their head coach's challenge at any time in the game, but only one per team per game. And once the request is made, it shall be final and irreversible. They may not remove the request once the IRS review starts. Let's move forward from the rule and look at our procedures and protocols. So our procedure. The head coach is asked to establish visual contact with the nearest referee. Say loudly in English, challenge, and show the signal. The signal on the right-hand side is in Aubrey, the official basketball rules. Effectively, the head coach shall draw a rectangle replicating a TV or a video screen. Much like our language that we introduced in the instant replay system earlier and discussed in here, the request must be made at the latest when the game is stopped for the first time after the decision to be reviewed. That is our limit. Once the ball is in play or live after that time, it's too late to review that play. The head coach will indicate the situation to be reviewed to the nearest referee. The referees, of course, will confirm that the requested challenge is valid, and they will indicate by drawing the box to the scorer's table that the head coach's challenge is being granted, and they will go to the instant replay system and review the call. During the IRS review, the players must remain on the court. If the challenge is successful, the initial decision is overturned. If the challenge is not successful, the initial decision remains. The referees use the same procedure as in the IRS review rule, and the game shall be resumed as after any other IRS review. Let's have a look at a couple of videos that show examples of situations where a head coach may challenge the play. So once again, as in the slide, we described the protocol at the beginning of the video.
Really recovered well, only down by 3. Chance to close the gap further, but they turn it over.
Remember, we're any time in the game. the head coach wishes to challenge whether this was a personal foul that should be upgraded to an unsportsmanlike foul, they have drawn the box for the referees. The referees confirm that this may be reviewed, and the referees go to the IRS to review the play.
Let's see, what will the officiating crew decide? Unsportsmanlike.
Final decision is communicated. That head coach has used his one and only head coach's challenge for the game. So this is an example of a 2 or 3 point shot. I believe the referees on this floor indicated this was a 2-point shot. The head coach believes it's a 3. On the stoppage, next stoppage of the game,
is 3-point shot or 2-point shot. Let me see, please.
they followed the protocol, asked the referees acknowledged, and come back and confirm it's a 2-point shot. So again, a rule that we encourage you to have a careful look at. It is relatively simple and adds an exciting new dynamic to the game. So that's it for our rule changes. We're going to spend about 5 minutes now looking at a couple new signals that have been introduced, a couple IoT manual changes. So we've introduced a new signal for goaltending and basket interference. It's very interesting that we've never had a signal for this in the game. And we've seen some communication difficulties between referees and the table when it's occurred. So we've introduced a signal. The referee, with their arm, makes what replicates a rim and shows with their finger the ball rolling around the edge of the rim. This is our goaltending and basket interference signal. Our critical piece, and we say this with everything we do on the game, is remember verbal support. With all of our decisions and all of our signals, we use our voice and we express what happened on the play. Verbal support is critical on all of our signals, and particularly the 2 new signals we introduced, goaltending and basket interference, and our new signal for the cylinder play. We introduced the cylinder foul in 2020, the situation where either an offensive or defensive player encroaches into the other player's cylinder, makes illegal contact. So generally, what I'm going to refer to as a non-moving foul, a stationary foul involving the cylinder and encroachment for our cylinder play. And I apologize because you can only see the upper part of my body, but this is the referee moving both hands up and down, indicating the edges of a cylinder. Once again, critical to use your voice on all decisions, but even more so with the new signals and with our cylinder play signal. We are a little concerned that, like everything new we introduce, that this signal will be overused. So please, it is only for cylinder play fouls. The benefit of the signal is that the coaches and players will immediately know that this is a cylinder foul. It is about encroachment. It's about who encroached into whose cylinder, not necessarily force of contact, initiation of contact, but responsibility for the illegal contact. Our 2 new signals. I apologize, one more. Of course, our head coach's challenge signal that we've talked about, the drawing of the rectangular box, and again, repeated by the referees at the scores table when confirming that the head coach's challenge shall be initiated. Now we're going to move to our videos. Nice use of the goaltending and basket interference signal by a referee at our under-17 men's World Cup in Malaga, Spain this summer. We've been using these new signals in all summer competitions, and they are in use as of now. Here we have an encroachment foul, and the referee nicely uses the cylinder signal, indicates it's a cylinder foul. And as we go forward, we'll look at two changes that we've made to the IoT manual and look at videos for both. These changes are in force now. The first is around a warning whistle. We ask the referees to use a warning whistle in 4 situations. First, the crew chief will have a warning whistle prior to entering the jump ball for the opening toss. The second time is when we place the ball at the disposal of the thrower in at the start of each new quarter or overtime. The fourth, when the ball is placed at the disposal of the thrower in on a front court end line throw in, the administering official will have a warning whistle. And finally, we'll have a warning whistle when the ball is placed at the disposal of the thrower in to restart the game after a timeout. 4 situations for a warning whistle, an IoT mechanics change that we can put in place very quickly. The second IoT change is around the correct mechanic on a 3-point shot. We've made this change to clarify our communication with the scorers table. So on the attempt, only the primary referee, the trail or the center, shall signal the 3-point attempt. Only that official that is on ball responsible for that play. The other outside referee, the trail or the center, does not mirror the attempt. We do recognize there will be times that there will be dual coverage, perhaps near the center of the floor outside the 3-point line, where we have check in, and we haven't had the check out by the first referee. We may still be in dual coverage, and it may occur that both outside referees do signal the attempt. That's fine. But the protocol is that only the primary referee shall signal the 3-point attempt. However, if the basket is made, both outside referees, trail and center, signal the successful basket. Remembering this is all about communication of the attempt and the successful basket, and it's a successful basket that the scorers table cares about. Petra, if we can, I believe we're at the videos now of these. The warning whistle at the start of the quarter. Warning whistle on a front court inline throw in. And a warning whistle after a timeout. Well done by our referees at the Under-17 Women's World Cup, played in Debrecen, Hungary earlier this summer. And video on our protocol for our 3-point shot, changes to the IoT manual. Again, only the primary referee signaling the attempt if the basket is made, and both outside referees signal the made basket. We can see in this case, only the trail referee is signaling. Center official does not signal the attempt. Made basket, both outside referees signaling the attempt. So example of a dual coverage play. So ladies and gentlemen, that actually finishes our presentation for today. In summary, we've had an opportunity to look at the rule changes that are in effect as of October 1st, 2022. We've looked at some relatively minor changes and then focused on the major changes to the game. Not a lot of impact on the actual playing of the game, except perhaps in those games that use the IRS, the instant replay system, and the introduction of the head coach's challenge. I would encourage all of you to break the major changes into small parts, understand each part, and then build your understanding of that change into the whole. It's very much like our instruction to process the play. See the whole play, start, develop, finish. When you have all of the pieces, you can make a quality decision. I would like to thank everybody for their attendance today. It's certainly been my pleasure to spend this time with you. A reminder that the recording will be made available. The national federations will get all of this information, and you'll have time to digest it as we go forward. Thank you for taking the time to be part of our September 2022 Monday special webinar. Be well, take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.